Paul Flynn.
Does he recall his defence minister saying in April that the Helmand mission would last 3 years and we would come out of it, the British Army, without firing a single shot? We're now in a position where 5 of our soldiers have died. Many Afghanis have died, some Taliban, some civilians. And aren't we in grave danger on this mission, which has been described by many in the military and elsewhere as a mission impossible, of driving the ordinary people of Afghanistan into the hands of Taliban? And can we explain to our American friends that you cannot win hearts and minds by using bombs and bullets?
It's an extraordinary story. I believe there was almost universal approval of our going to Afghanistan in the first place to both get rid of the haven that was there for Al-Qaeda and to end, as far as we could, much of the medieval cruelty of the Taliban government. And there's been great successes in that area as far as education and democratic change has been achieved. But I believe that having this period of 5 years in which there have been remarkably few British casualties, only 7 British casualties, and most of those were in accidents, we've made this monumental error of invading the Helmand province, and the result has been that there have been 33 British casualties since then, fatalities. Most of them have been in combat. It's a period, and we had a debate on this subject in February this year when this was forecast, and I believe that there was another military gentleman who resigned from the army last month in some despair in a situation that he described as being barking mad, and that was Captain Leo Doherty of the Scots Guards. And he described the situation of where the military went in and achieved a victory in the Sanguine town, and pointed out that that was the time in which there should have been some development going. And he said the military is just on one side of the triangle. Where was the Department for International Development or the Foreign Office? The window was briefly open for our message to be spread, for the civilian population to be informed of our intent. In fact, nothing happened, and the Taliban regrouped, attacked on a few days later, and there were 6 British casualties as a result of that. I would have thought I would have heard this morning a cry of some despair from the military out there, who've been given several impossible tasks. In the last 12 months in the Helmand province operation, they've been told that their task was to eliminate poppies, and that their task is not to eliminate poppies. They were told that their job was to storm the Taliban strongholds, and they've subsequently been told their task is not to storm the Taliban strongholds. They were told very firmly their job was one of reconstruction. They're now told their job is not to do any reconstruction at all. And they were told in a famous saying, which was said and can't be unsaid, that there was a hope that they could go into Helmand province without firing a single shot. And of course, they've been ordered to fire tens of thousands of shots, and the result of which many hundreds of Taliban and other Afghanis have been killed. This is no way to, we know this battle can't be won using military power alone. It has to be won for winning hearts and minds, and you don't win hearts and minds by using bombs and bullets, as the Americans have been trying to do in their Operation Enduring Stupidity, which is mainly concerned very aggressive search and destroy missions, usually from the air, in which many people, innocent and guilty, are killed. Entirely counterproductive. You don't win hearts and minds by cheating the Afghani farmers. We paid out £21 million of British taxpayers' money in compensation. Just a small part of what we spent. It's about, the total bill will come to £240 million that we'll pay out just for the eradication of poppies. But we've spent out this £21 million, which was sent out to the corrupt Karzai government in order to compensate the farmers. Some of the farmers actually had cheques for about £380. All the cheques bounced. And to this day, and there's been an energetic campaign to find out where that money has gone. And the farmers are going through And to this day, there's been an energetic campaign to find out where that money has gone. And the farmers are going through the courts to establish their claim for compensation. But none of it has got through. And perhaps the government can tell us this morning where that 21 million has gone. Because we're dealing with a culture and a country that's been run in a way that's been endemically corrupt for 2 centuries. That's been run by warlords, for 2 centuries at least, where we have gone there as the Ferengi, the name they use for us now, and lost 3 wars. The Russians went there, and I can remember the Russian Duma telling me with some contempt, also, you people have invaded Afghanistan. We did the same. It took us 6 days to conquer Afghanistan. We were there for 10 years. We had an army of 120,000, not the 5,000 we've got or the 30,000 and 80 got, but 120,000. They left in ignominy with 15,000 of their soldiers killed. I believe we're on the brink now of a position where we can either go forward and rethink our operation there, or we could lose everything. I believe it's very possible that unless we have attainable objectives to consolidate the gains that have been made around Kabul in education by having an exit from the Helmand province or having to recast the operation in the Helmand province, we will find ourselves in a position when we will leave Afghanistan with the same ignominy that the French left Vietnam after Dien Bien Phu, or the Americans left Vietnam, or the Russians left Afghanistan. And I believe that this is, we've forgotten the nature of guerrilla warfare. There were vivid accounts of the French lining up when they left, when they surrendered, with epaulets and ceremonial swords shining there, standing in serried ranks, the pride of the French army. And they were surrendered to a group, a rabble, that came out of the bush, many of them barefoot, with homemade weapons, and the most high-tech piece of equipment they had were bicycles. But that army, that guerrilla army, beat the French army. And I believe, unless we understand the hearts and mind argument, and we see the extent to which we're losing the support of the people of Afghanistan, we will be entering a cauldron of grievous suffering and death. And it's not an exaggeration to say that we're following exactly the same path with the same delusions as America did in Vietnam. And the calls for escalation are ones that should be turned down and rejected. Because if we don't, we're going to find that we're in a position of the past, when, because of the belief in politicians here, the military are there, great anger shown on websites, and I think the ministers and others should be well to see what the serving soldiers are saying. But I can make this as a final point, because I know the time is short. I believe there is an alternative there. There is an alternative for their crops, and it's not to destroy the poppy crops. We know the abject futility of our attack on reducing the poppy crops. We know that you can't destroy the drugs trade on the supply side. Lord Byrd said that in his strategy paper. We're trying to do in Afghanistan in 5 years what America has failed to do in Colombia in 20 years. And the result is there. That country is in a state of bloody chaos, with 3 armies, 2 of them funded entirely by drugs. It had made no difference whatsoever to the supply of drugs, because for every reduction that's taking place in Colombia, more drugs were actually produced from Peru and Bolivia. Exactly the same would happen if we were successful in Afghanistan. The crops would grow in Miami and Laos and in the other surrounding countries. There's no chance of doing that. There's no chance of imposing on Afghanistan a Swedish-style democracy. There's no chance of ensuring that there will never be a place for Osama bin Laden to hide, either in Afghanistan or in North Pakistan or anywhere else, wherever he might be now. All the might, the subtlety, the bribery, the wealth of the American army hasn't found him yet, and there's nothing we can do by changing a system to ensure that there will be no place for Osama bin Laden to hide. But that is these are our unachievable objectives that we have. But I believe we're in a position now where our soldiers are right to say, what on earth are the politicians doing? What is our mission? And one recalls the charge of the Light Brigade, when it was said there that Those who went in there who had no chance of objecting to what was going on, but an act of military stupidity. But if there was a latter-day Tennyson rewriting the story of Helmand now, they might well rephrase it as saying, Blair to the right of them, Bush to the left of them, hollered and thundered. Theirs not to reason why, theirs but to do and die. Into the valley of death, into the mouth of Helmand, drove the 5,000.